Welcome to the Crunch McDabbles Show. I'm your host, Crunch McDabbles. This is the only show where we break down all the delicious Pathfinder 2nd Edition subclasses. Today's show, The Secrets of Magus Part 2, Hybrid Studies. I went to Magic College and I got a degree in hybrid studies, and I still can't find a job. What? Your hybrid class is a choice you make at first level with your Magus, and you decide what kind of Magus you are going to be. Now, there are 4 things you get with this hybrid class choice. You get a special ability related to your Arcane Cascade stance or your spell strike. You get a Conflux or a Focus spell. You get Studious Spells added to your list of Studious Spells, and these are added at level 7, level 11, and level 13. And you get Feats at level 4 and level 10. Now, all of these you get automatically except for those Feats. Those Feats are optional. You don't have to take them, but they are pretty awesome, so you're probably going to want to have them. Well, what better way to compare all of these things than to pit each Magus head-to-head in competition? We're going to put each of these abilities against each other and rank them from 1 to 5 and give 1 to 5 points to each one. And we'll see which hybrid study is truly the fairest of them all. Let's start with special abilities, and here they are ranked last, getting 1 point, the Starlit Span. Now, don't get me wrong, being able to make a spell strike at range is pretty amazing and powerful. Making a heightened shocking grasp across the battlefield, I love that. However, someone had to be last here, and the Eldritch Archer has the same ability, and the Eldritch Archer doesn't have any range increment limitation on their Eldritch shot. So 1 point for you. 2 points for Inexorable Iron. 10 hit points are great. I love that, but it's not very many 10 hit points. You're going to be 10th level and get 5 hit points back per round? Not great. 3 points to the Twisting Tree. It turns your staff into a D6 agile weapon that can turn into a 2-handed D8 weapon with reach, parry, and trip. That's pretty great. And you can change your grips almost whenever you want. That's amazing. But all this does, though, is it moves the staff from a really bad simple weapon to roughly the equivalent of a slightly above average martial weapon. 4 points to the Laughing Shadow here. You get movement speed, which I love, and damage. And that's a winning combination in my book. They get 10 feet of bonus movement speed when they're unarmored. That's pretty crazy. If you make a nimble elf, that takes the fleet general feat at level 3 and takes the monk archetype, and then takes the monk moves feat at level 6 for a 10-foot status bonus to movement speed, plus this Laughing Shadow movement speed, you could get 60 feet of movement in one movement. If you're hasted, you could move 240 feet in 6 seconds, which is 40 feet a second, which works out to 27 miles per hour. That's fast. And on top of that, you get a damage bonus for flat-footed targets, which is great. It's kind of like a poor man's sneak attack. But the 5 points goes to the Sparkling Targe. Here, Targe. And here is why. First, they get the shield block feat. No big deal there, but it's nice to get something for nothing. Second, you get a neat, unique ability to be able to use your shield block to mitigate spell and magical effects damage, and that's fantastic. But then this pushed it over the top for me. When you raise your shield, you add your shield's circumstance bonus to your saving throws for spells and magical effects. This pushes the Magus's saves higher than the champion and the monk. And finally, adding the Arcane Cascade bonus to your shield's hardness is pretty strong as well. And on to the Conflux Spells, and here they are. All of these Conflux Spells, when you cast them, they're going to recharge your spell strike. So each one of them, you're going to get that benefit when you cast them, which is great because it's usually one action to recharge your spell strike. And on top of that, all of these are just a single action to use. Gaining 1 point, the Twisting Tree with their Spinning Staff attack. It's a single action that lets you make 2 strikes, kind of like a Flurry of Blows or a Ranger's Twin Takedown. Now, for those classes, this type of attack is really great because it lets you do 2 other actions each round in addition to your attacks. But the Magus, even the Twisting Tree, it isn't that kind of character. So you can never really use this ability on a turn when you spell strike, because if you use it before, then you're going to make your spell strike at the highest multiple attack penalty because you made 2 attacks before, which is pretty bad. Or if you make it after, then both of those spinning staff attacks are made at that highest multiple attack penalty. So you just can't win there. Now, since the Twisted Tree can change the grip on their staff, they can make their spell strike with a 2-handed grip and then switch to a single-handed grip that's agile and make those attacks at -8. And this might be a hefty amount of damage to do that, so I don't want to disparage it too bad. Someone had to be last. And 2 stars to the Laughing Shadow. Being able to teleport at first level is truly amazing and really powerful. And adding an attack with that, it's even better. And doing both of those for a single action is really great. It's kind of like the Shadow Dancer Spring from the Shadows attack. But this would be better if you just teleported and could attack optionally if you wanted to. Being forced to teleport within reach of a monster is a limitation in itself, and then it forces you to attack in this when you have this feat. And 3 points to the Starlit Span. This is actually a really good focus point. It lets you reduce cover by 1 step and ignore concealment entirely. And if you hit, which is pretty easy to do, just to hit, you don't even have to crit, you just hit a monster, then you can pass those bonuses on to everyone else in a round. That's a great ability. The problem is it's a little situational. 4 points to the Sparkling Targe. Targe. Because this is great for them. The Sparkling Targe wants to do 3 things each round. They want a spell strike, which is 2 actions. They want to recharge their spell strike, which is 1 action. And they want to raise their shield, which is 1 action. See, you got 4 actions that you're trying to do in 3 actions. This focus point lets them do all 4 of those actions, 3 actions, that's 4 actions. And it adds in an attack on top of that, albeit an attack at -10. But really, that's a great focus point. But the 5 points goes to the Inexorable Iron because, again, what you get a small amount of sonic damage with the basic fortitude save, and with a critical failure, you have a small chance to knock them down. And the best part, it affects them in a 15-foot cone, which is a decent area. On towards Studious Spells. These spells added to your Studious Spell list at level 7, level 11, and level 13. And here they are. Let's rank them. 1 star to the Laughing Shadow. Mirror Image is great for defense. I like that spell. Dimension Door, not that great. Your Conflux spell might be almost as good, and it's 1 action, and it's a focus spell, so it recharges. And it includes an attack too, so 1 star for you. 2 stars to the Starlit Span. Now, since they get the always coveted Wall spell, you'd think they would have been ranked higher. The problem is it's Wall of Wind, so monsters walk right through it. 2 stars. And 3 stars to the Twisting Tree. The one spell that stands out for the Twisting Tree here is Slow. Slow is the only spell on the entire list of Studious Spells that could be cast as a spell strike spell. Now, this would require taking the 2nd level feat Expansive Spell Strike. And this would enable you to add 2 bonus spell strikes per day if you used Slow in your Studious Spell slots. And Slow is a nasty spell. The problem is you aren't going to have a high DC because your intelligence isn't stacked as a Magus, and you only get to master spell DC. But it still would be pretty nice to nail some baddies with the Slow spell strike 2 times a day. It kind of makes me want to make a Twisting Tree Chronocaster type of build that sucks the time out of their enemies. 4 stars to the Inexorable Iron because 1 spell on here, Enlarge. This is a perfect spell for this hybrid, and you get it right at level 7. It increases your damage and increases your reach, and at level 13, it gets heightened to the 4th level version, which means you add 4 damage and your size huge. This means you have a 10-foot reach. This means, A, you're making spell strikes now with a 20-foot range, which means not as much need to move around, just recharge and hit with your spell strike each round. And 2, if you take attack of opportunity with your 6th level feat, you're going to make a lot of attacks of opportunity because of all that territory you now have locked down with all that extra reach. And 5 stars goes to the Sparkling Targe.
Targe.
Targe. Targe.
Targe.
Just because all 3 of these spells are perfect for a tank. Resistance, it can be heightened to the 4th level version at level 13. Warding Aggression gets you that high, potentially +3 status bonus to your armor class, giving them a real high AC. And Stone Skin, that just makes you real tanky. And on to feats. First, we're going to have a look at the 4th level feats and rank these. And here they are. 1 star to the Sparkling Targe.
Targe.
Targe. Here is the problem. Sure, you get to raise your shield or cast a shield spell, which is amazing. For that small circumstance bonus to armor class, I like that. But you used up your reaction now, so you can't shield block. So 1 star. 2 stars to the Starlit Eyes. I like that name. And I do like this one a lot. Now, when you are simply in Arcane Cascade stance, you just see things better when you're in that stance, which is super cool. And it reduces the flat checks against hidden or concealed targets. And I like this part even more. When you use your focus spell now, when you're already in Arcane Cascade stance, now you ignore not just concealed like you did before, you also ignore the hidden condition, which is fantastic, and you can pass that on. 3 stars to the Twisting Tree, mostly because how complicated this darn feat was. I think it's awesome. Add Deadly to your staff, that's great. Remember that Deadly dice increases as your striking rune increases. And even better, add the critical specialization effect to your staff at level 4. That's 1 level before the fighter gets critical specialization, so the fighter can go suck an egg. And being able to add property runes to staves, which I don't understand why you couldn't do that in the first place. A staff is a weapon too, but now you can do that. And the other part to this long feat is really great too. You can choose your property runes as part of your daily preparations, which makes you more versatile, which I like, but it's also going to make you haggle with your DM more over these uncommon property runes. And 4 points. Are we doing points or are we doing stars? I lost track. Devastating Spell Strike. The Inexorable Iron, that's who gets this. Creatures adjacent to your target, they're taking splash damage now. That's ridiculous. No attack, no saving throw. Just add in damage to targets that are adjacent to your target. Not targets, but creatures. Granted, it's just 3, 4, or 5 damage depending on your level. Of course, that could stack in with other splash damage if you're using the Acid Splash cantrip. And it works with cantrips, which is great. You can make it with any spell strike attack, even your cantrips will cause this to go off. So you get it at 4th level. That's crazy. So you're making these attacks and adding in that extra damage all day and all night. But 5 points, the Laughing Shadow takes this one. Distracting Spell Strike is absolutely perfect for a feat. Make feints every time you spell strike as part of your spell strike. I want that all the time. Fainting just adds extra damage by decreasing the armor class, and it potentially decreases armor class right when you're about to nail them with your spell strike. This is so perfect. And getting that as a free action, I love it. Or attached, not a free action, but attached to your spell strike. And there's no limitation on this one either. You can use it with cantrips, use it all day, use it all night. And the last section, 10th level feats. Here we go. Here are all the 10th level feats. 1 star goes to Inexorable Iron. Sustaining Steel. It's great because you regain hit points after your spell strike or after casting a spell, and it's double the spell level in hit points healed. It's not a terrible amount. It's not great. It is what it is. The problem is it is only from spell slots, which is a little limiting. You're only going to get that, 4 or 6 times a day. And 2 stars to Dimensional Disappearance, the Laughing Shadow. I do like this one. It's being able to turn invisible when you use your Dimensional Assault is great. It turns you into a mini Shadow Dancer where you teleport and show up invisible, which is awesome. It's still a little tricky to use though, because you don't want to use this at the beginning of the turn because your spell strike will be at a penalty, but you also don't want to use this at the end of the turn because you'll end your invisibility. But at least this feat allows you to not have to make your attack. I wish they did that in the first place. So I'd suggest using your spell strike and then use this dimensional assault to get behind the target you're attacking, but don't make the attack. Just stay invisible. That'll give you some defense and it recharges your spell strike. And then the next round, you make your spell strike again from invisible against a flat-footed target. I think that's how you win with that one. 3 stars to Dazzling Block, the Sparkling Targe. And don't get me wrong, I love this one, but the Targe has won too many of these already, so I'm putting this one back here. Dazzling Block lets you make a free attempt to blind people in a big 15-foot cone. The thing I love about this, it's free. It doesn't cost you anything, which is the same thing as free, but really no spell slot, no action. Well, that's a reaction, I guess, but you're getting a shield block out of it. It's visually cool, and like I said, it's free. Shield block, mitigate damage, and try and blind a bunch of people. I love that. It makes me want to archetype this Sparkling Targe into a Bastion to get that extra shield block each round, just to be able to do this twice in a round. And 4 stars to Lunging Spell Strike from the Spinning or the Twisting Tree. How awesome is this? Make your staff spell strikes at incredible range. Add 5 feet times the spell level, plus the staff already has reach when wielded in 2 hands. That means right there at 10th level, you're making your spell strikes at 30 or 35 feet away. But the 5 stars goes to the Starlit Span for Meteoric Spell Strike. This baby is my favorite of favorites. Pick a target, make a spell strike, and it's at range. It could be all the way across the battlefield. And all the targets in between you and your target, they take auto damage. No roll to hit, no saving throws. And the damage isn't bad. It's double the spell level. That's huge. And it doesn't even look like you have to hit your target with your spell strike for the targets in between to take damage. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't know. Now think about this though. If your ranged weapon has a great range, let's say at 100 feet away, or for some reason you're using a crossbow maybe, 120 feet away for that first range increment, how many monsters could you hit in between? You know, it'd have to be perfect to line up with all those monsters, but potentially this could be, well, crank out some math there. It could be a lot of damage there. And that is it. I've been your host, Crunch McDabbles. This has been the Crunch McDabbles Show. Survive Galarian with a degree in hybrid studies, because you can always find a job in Galarian with that degree. Or you should be able to. Good account. All right, well, let's just make sure I'm pronouncing all these words right. Let's see, what do we have here? Magus. Magus, okay. Let's check this.
Magus.
Whoops.